And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and whether you were in a tank or are in a tank, in a helicopter, or up a tree, scouts out, that goes to all my cavalry troopers out there. Welcome to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen, live from our home base, WAAR. We are America, your number one, America Radio, your number one source for government and political talk anywhere, coming to you from the God's Country studio nestled on the bank of the mighty Allegheny River Standing Guard. I am Hutch Bailey Jr., and from the Shenandoah Valley studio in Virginia, please come in, Jack.
Hutch, everyone tuned in to Spreaker. This is Jack checking in from the muggy mid-Atlantic. It's been very thunderstorm related every day this week. I hope everyone that's in the region is safe.
Yeah, I heard some warnings that were rather chilling come over the emergency broadcast system. I think that's the second or third time in my life that I've heard actual talking come after the tones. That was a little shady. That was about storms.
Yeah, there were.
Please follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. Catch the show on your Roku via Blueberry or YouTube, 405media.com, iHeartRadio, or the Cold War Radio app. The only two places you can catch the show live are on Spreaker and via the Cold War Radio app that is also associated with Spreaker. The email to the show is hutch@steelcityresistance.com. The Cold War Radio patron hotline, 412-567-1460. If you go on Spreaker, the chat room is up and kicking. Please visit the website, steelcityresistance.com. You can catch all the show notes, links. We never get through all of the stories that we have. There's just not enough time, too much detail. But you can catch everything there. You can also become a Cold War Radio patron and join the 20 patrons that are carrying the show on their broad shoulders. If you want to send any mail, it's Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, PA 15226.
You are listening to Cold War Radio.
All right. Now, there's a lot of things we're going to touch on tonight, Jack. This isn't probably your conventional show. I mean, I found some topics I wanted to talk about, and one of them, I hope we get our act together on this, because back in the 50s, we put Turkey into NATO. And so they're a NATO ally. In other words, if somebody attacks Turkey, supposedly on paper, we're supposed to defend them. Today, Recep Tayyip Erdogan urged the Islamic world to unite against Israel. I mean, when is it going to occur to the Department of Defense and the Congress that we can't ally with this guy?
Yep, he's pretty much stated that he wanted to establish the caliphate, the new caliphate in the Middle East. He'd had that attempted coup, which we're not sure who was behind it, but that was quickly snuffed out. And in the meantime, I think he basically eradicated most of his opposition in the entire country as far as government, police forces, all that. So he's got a pretty good stronghold on Turkey right now.
Yeah, and he's dabbling in a lot of international affairs. He's paying havoc on the Kurds in the region and in Syria. I don't trust that guy, and I haven't for a long time. And you know, I had some friends that I think they went to Turkey during college, or so they had some affinity for Erdogan and the Turkish. And I couldn't get it through their heads that the suit he's wearing is fake. He's an imam through and through. He's not secular. He started out secular to get elected. But Turkey is fast becoming an Islamist stronghold. I mean, at one time, it was very secular.
No doubt. I mean, wasn't Turkey the ones buying the stolen oil from ISIS out of Syria?
Yeah, I mean, they're no ally. I mean, and we got to get. I hope the president can recognize this and do something about it. We need to treat them the same way we treat anybody else like that.
Well, you'd have to reconsider your NATO membership. I mean, I think what is the NATO control is where in Brussels, the home of globalism,
right?
I think.
Yeah, I'm not. I was with the president when he said get out of NATO, and everybody lambasted him. I don't see the point, because you know why I don't see the point? Because not one of those pansy nations would defend us. They won't even support our Jerusalem move.
They'll take our money every day.
And they'll stay in line with Iran. When we're trying to make a message to the world, I say get out of it. But I have for a long time, and it's probably not going to happen. But it could, you never know. Let's get a little bit of let me skip back. I missed a segment. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for last night. My son came and visited me out at my camp, and that just trumped the show, and I didn't have really the wherewithal to communicate it to anybody, so I do apologize. I know A-Radio was ticked. He sent me a DM. I'm sorry, man. I mean, that's why I talked to Jack, and he said he'd do the show tonight so we could make sure you have enough hours of the show. So,
but that is awesome. How's he doing since he's returned? Everything returning to normal somewhat?
Oh, yeah. And he wasn't real. He grew up until he was about 10 years old in a very rural place. And then I moved the family back to Pittsburgh, and he fell right in with the street kids. I mean, he played a lot of ball, and, the country's different from the city. In the city, in some neighborhoods, you'll have 20 kids outside playing every night.
Right.
And you don't have that in the country. And until people get vehicles, because there's so much distance in between everybody. But so I didn't really think he was going to like the camp, but he came up here and fell in love with it. So that was a real good
That's
thing.
Cool.
That is cool.
Hopefully you have many, many weekends there shared together for just relaxing.
Oh, yeah. He's got a great schedule, too, because he's a full-time firefighter, so he works 24-hour shifts. Right. So he gets, several days in a row off all the time, unless he wants to work overtime. So that's a good deal. I'm looking forward to it. Now let's have a little fun. The Daily Caller, I think it was a Daily Caller, went out on one of these missions where they ask a question and try to get answers. And the question is, would you rather date a Trump supporter or a convicted felon? Let's listen.
Hello, everybody. I'm Amber Athey.
I'm Justin Caruso.
And we're with the Daily Caller. Today we're asking people, who would you rather date? A Trump supporter?
Or a convicted felon?
Let's find out. Would you rather date a Trump supporter or a convicted felon?
A convicted felon?
Felon.
Felon.
A convicted felon, 100%.
Well, I would never date a Trump supporter, and I may date a convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
Convicted felon. Trump supporter.
Okay, so we have 2 convicted felons and 1 Trump supporter. Is this going to cause division among the group?
Would you rather date a Trump supporter or a convicted felon?
Trump supporter.
Okay. Any reason for that?
Not as scary as a convicted felon? I don't know.
Trump supporter.
Trump supporter.
Trump supporter. I'd rather be single, man. I can't do either. I can't, man. Nah, I'd rather be single at that point.
You would never date a Trump supporter. Like, ever.
I think I probably have accidentally, but...
Listen to that voice.
I can't.
That's trans testicle.
A Trump supporter.
Most people in jail are on, Trump charges. No pun intended.
Better than a convicted felon, I think. That's... Yeah.
All right.
I don't know what they're going to do. A convicted felon,
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Trump's pretty unpredictable.
That's why I like him.
I'm a staunch conservative, and I read the Daily Caller, and I love Tucker Carlson.
So you can head over to thedailycaller.com and check that out. I did not post that video. I failed. But that woman with the deep voice, that's a scary one.
Yeah, and I like how they actually got some answers from the entire group of young Republicans at that campus when you had those 4 straight Trump supporters in a row.
Yeah.
That wiped out the whole college Republicans on that campus.
Yeah, that was good. That was interesting. I try to bring off the wall stuff every now and then, and this is one too. This is something that I asked myself when I heard the news. I'm not sure. This isn't the right time of year for team spirit. So I'm not sure what the exercise is in the Republic of Korea. But there's apparently a joint exercise going on. And it just started, and Kim Jong-un balked to the South Korean president and even to President Trump about it. And I'm thinking, why are we doing a military thing right now? You know what? I mean, why would you be so either A, arrogant, or B, stupid to do something like that to provoke them before you have historic negotiations? Let's listen to Rand Paul.
I've always thought it's important that we're talking. It's also even more important that the South Koreans are talking. So direct talks between North and South Korea are incredibly important. And I think the only way peace comes to the peninsula is when they're actually actively engaged in talks. But I've been encouraged over the last month that there's been more talk than there's been in a long time.
All right. So if for some reason the North Koreans are suddenly making a big to-do about the joint military exercise we have with the South Koreans, do you believe that? Or do you believe we should do something to address that, or what?
Well, I think they've in good faith stopped their testing, and that's so far as we can tell. Now, it may be because they've already completed all their testing, but they've at least agreed to stop their nuclear testing. I think not doing military exercises would actually be a show of good faith on our part. Doesn't change anything permanently, but delaying that until after talks, I think, would be a good idea. I do, too. I just think that doesn't make any sense, and it sounds to me like that's a failure to communicate and not a message. I think somewhere the diplomatic corps and the military of both nations failed to say, wait a minute, we might want to don't cancel it, but postpone it and see how these talks go. Or do it down in Pusan. Yeah. But the thing is you know how the military is. It was probably, it had to be on the books probably a year ago just to get the funding and all the logistics in place, and they probably just never even thought about it. You know, that's my opinion. Yeah. You spent all that time in logistics. Exactly. You know, you got that money that's divvied up to a certain thing. You got to spend it on that, or it's gone. That's right. They have different colors of money, and the money for that exercise was started to be executed a year ago, guaranteed. So that's probably one of the things they thought about, how much they would lose on contractors and things that they already laid on. But anyway, I'm glad somebody's watching. I don't normally agree with Rand Paul on foreign policy issues. I do on that one. I think that's just a dumb move. And you may see them cut it back. It's probably cut back already, I would imagine, because it's such an important thing. Now, ladies and gentlemen that are listening to the show, there's probably not a whole lot of people that know that it's on today. So if you know anybody that listens to the show regular, or you have the opportunity to use social media to tell them that we are on, please do that. I'd appreciate it. Let's see where we are now. Okay. Thomas D. Homan, who is the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director, who is about ready to retire, is speaking or spoke at a law enforcement appreciation day or something yesterday. It was a panel the president had. Right. And it was the whole participants were all law enforcement people. And I mean, they were the ones with the 4 stars and everything. And this guy was called on, and he said a mouthful. Let's listen.
Tom? First of all, Mr. President, I want to thank you for having this meeting today, this roundtable. We appreciate your leadership on this issue. The Secretary, I appreciate your leadership and how you support law enforcement and the rule of law. And AG, I can't say enough good things about what you've done for law enforcement. You know, I hear a lot of things today about sanctuary cities and the wall. I'm not the smartest guy at this table by any means, but sanctuary cities, they want to take the Attorney General on and get their funding, even though they violate federal law to keep criminal aliens in, but they don't want a wall to keep them out. To me, that's just backwards. And I just want to spend a minute separating fact from fiction, please. I hope the American people can understand the fight about sanctuary cities. I appreciate the American patriots in this room that have joined this fight, which is a good fight. It's a right fight. The intentional mismessaging of sanctuary cities and what they do. I hear they protect the immigrant communities, and they don't. It's a complete opposite. When you release a criminal alien from a jail, they're going to go to the very communities in which they live and reoffend. Anybody can Google recidivism rates. Over half reoffend the first year against the very immigrant communities in which they live. So you're not protecting the immigrant community, you're putting them at greater risk of crime. And when you force an ICE agent, where you can take someone, the custody of somebody in the safety and security of county jail and force it in the neighborhoods, you put our officers at risk. You already put the public at risk. And we're going to find others who weren't even on our radar. So you put the community at greater risk of crime, you put them at greater risk of ICE arrest, and you put the heroes, the law enforcement officers, at great risk. This is National Police Week, as said earlier, and I want to talk about the messaging, the mismessaging from some of these groups and some of these politicians about what ICE does. When you read that, sanctuary cities protect immigrant communities, but also we don't want to be commandeered, we don't want to be ICE agents. We have never asked anybody to be an ICE agent. We don't want any law enforcement officer to be an ICE agent. What we want is access to a county jail to talk to somebody that we know is here illegally in violation of federal law that committed yet another crime. You can't tell ICE to prioritize criminal aliens and not give me access to the jail. It just don't make sense. And the final point I want to make, in defense of the brave men and women of the Border Patrol and ICE, I'm sick and tired of the constant vilification of these men and women who leave their home every day and strap a gun to their hip, leave the safety and security of their families to defend this nation and to defend their neighborhoods. When you have a congressman standing in front of the ICE office in New York City and call us the Gestapo, comparing what we do to war crimes. When you got a congressman who said, quote, the cowardly acts of ICE officers that terrorize innocent immigrant communities. ICE does more to protect the immigrant community than any politician ever has done. We've arrested several 100,000 criminals, removed them from the streets. For those people who want to keep vilifying the men and women who took a sworn oath, who are enforcing the laws enacted by you, Congress, the next time you think about vilifying the men and women of ICE, I want you to do what I did this week. I want you to go to the National Law Enforcement Wall. I want you to walk that wall and read the names on that wall. Over 400 Border Patrol agents and ICE officers whose hearts stopped beating, defending this nation. It's a dishonor to these men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice to vilify the men and women that carried badge and gun. So think twice before you do it. And as far as the hate that I take for defending the men and women of ICE and the Border Patrol, that will stop the day my heart stops to beat. Then it won't end. And even though I may be retiring soon, this fight doesn't end with me. I will stay engaged and I will keep fighting for you, sir. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I've worked for 6 presidents, and I respect them all. But no president has done more than you for border security and for law enforcement. I think every law enforcement officer at this table would agree with me.
Thank you very much, Sean. That's very nice. That's a great compliment, believe me, because you have indeed worked for 6, and all 6 respected you greatly.
So Thomas D. Homan, ladies and gentlemen, a product of the president. I mean, he wouldn't have come out and been that frank, in my opinion, during the tenure of any other president up until Donald Trump.
He wouldn't have been allowed to.
Or that. That's right.
I'm sure that during his struggles, he probably, if he's that staunch defending and trying to uphold the laws that he so eloquently stated, Congress passed these laws that he's enforcing, he would have been running it up the chain and it would have just been ignored in D.C. But President Trump likes these people that are trying to do their jobs. I like how he was talking about sanctuary cities, and we're trying to get to the criminal illegals, and the sanctuary cities are preventing us from even going in there and talking to these people, And
he was very articulate about who these illegal aliens target. I mean,
their own communities,
right?
In some cases, in some cases, in the more urban settings, they're the ones that are running the gangs. They're controlling neighborhoods and suburbs and areas, and basically clamping down and putting the rest of the community in fear for their lives.
They are. And it's the same with Islamic immigrants. I mean, you look at what's going on in Sweden right now. Sweden needs 200,000 more workers just to support its welfare state. And you've got 60-something areas, no-go zones, that the law is criminal Islamic gangs and the mosques. I mean, it's incredible what people allow to happen to themselves with government approval. And it would be that way here if we let it.
That was what was inevitably going to happen here until we elected President Trump. We just basically stopped it. We haven't ended the movement because they're trying to wait out the Trump presidency. They're trying to wait that out and then continue on where they left off. So that's why we have to be so engaged this year and turn the tables and put a Congress in place that's going to be more Trump friendly.
I agree, and I think one of the keys to saving the republic is the Secretary of Education, and I'll get into that in a minute. But first, we're going to get into our meat and potatoes. I wanted to talk about every year at this time of year. Some years it's stronger than others, but you see the uprising at the Israeli border. And they're blaming it on the move of the embassy to Jerusalem. But it happens all the time. You guys all know it. We've reported on it for years. But I just wanted to bring to light because of the absolute just abandonment of truth by the U.S. media. 24 out of 61 of the slain protesters were terrorists. The IDF did a study, and they affirmed that 24 out of 61 that were killed in Monday's mass riot at the Gaza border were terrorists affiliated with either Hamas or the PIJ, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, citing data gathered by the Shin Bet. This is from Ynet News. Yoav Zitun and Elior Levy bring at least 24 of the 61 Palestinians killed on Monday in the Gaza border riots were terrorists. And I already told you they were mostly affiliated with Hamas, and some were members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the IDF spokesperson's unit said Tuesday, following a joint investigation conducted by the IDF and the Shin Bet. Violent clashes erupted Monday between Palestinian protesters and the IDF on the Gaza border on the backdrop of the opening of the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. This is the highest Palestinian death toll since Operation Protective Edge in 2014. That was the last time the IDF had to go out and cut the grass. IDF fighter jets and tanks then attacked Hamas targets in a training camp in Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip, following earlier attempts to plant an explosive device on the fence and gunfire at soldiers. About 40,000 Palestinians have gathered near the fence in 13 hotspots along the border since the morning hours. Several thousand others were located in the tent area, about a half a kilometer from the fence. More than 1,200 were shot and wounded, with 116 in serious or critical condition. About 12,000 others suffered other types of injuries, including from tear gas, Palestinian sources said. And if you look at the reports that come from this, Jack, there is an underlying hatred of Israel in the left in this country.
It's no more evident than the lack of elected Democrat that attended the opening of the new embassy in Jerusalem. And like you said, this is the same time of the year that all of this happens. It's totally organized, backed. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Iran payoff money, the pallets of cash,
guaranteed
release of the $150 billion, they're somehow funding some of this.
And I'll bet you could find other American money there too.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how, because from what I've known, a lot of the Jewish votes Democrat.
Almost all of it.
So I'm wondering if they're going to have, a collective look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, what are we doing here? You see the way that they're claiming victims on the Palestinian side. It's like you've got places where they can protest, and as soon as you start breaching areas and coming closer and closer, you start. I mean, they say you were just throwing rocks. I saw these guys. They were using slings like from biblical time, David and Goliath's like slings
and catapults.
Rocks were the size of softballs. It was the size of these rocks these guys were slinging.
They rolled out giant catapults too. I mean, from biblical, brings you the memory of. It's just they're organized, and they, if you go on Wayne Dupree's site, I think he has a video of what I was talking about last night. The actors, these are actors. You see the dead boy on the thing, and it goes global, viral on NBC and CNN, and the guy keeps the camera on, and the little kid's nose itches, and he scratches it. He's supposed to be dead. It's all a joke, man. It is. And the thing about it is they have such disregard for their own people. What mother would bring her baby to that? Think about it.
It comes to control. Who's controlling these people? Are they making these people do this,
There's no doubt in my mind. I mean,
I know back in the past that we've seen the education, the youth, elementary and preschool on of their complete, total indoctrination of hatred towards Jews in their schoolrooms. So, maybe the teenager kids, they're already brainwashed to their hatred.
They probably are. That's another thing that we have to get straightened out. This situation in Sweden and also other places, but Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, is where the curricula come for these schools, for these madrasas. And that's what they're using in other countries. They're exporting the curricula, and what it is, it's repetitive. It's reading the Quran, verse after verse after verse after verse. It's really, it's creepy.
Cultish.
Yeah, very.
A step out of line and there, and
you get beat.
You get beat right back into submission quick.
That's absolutely right. Now, on what you talked about earlier about the election and stopping this, we've got some work to do. By Avery Anapol from The Hill, and this hits home. 4 socialist-backed candidates win Pennsylvania legislative primaries. We have got to take the gloves off when it comes to dealing with our political adversaries. We have to stop with the being nice and calling them Democrats and calling them liberals and even calling them progressives. Because I know what progressive means and you know what progressive means, but people that don't study politics think they just want to make progress. And we feed right into it when we call them that. These are totalitarian people that if you peel the onion back and look what they really want, and Bernie Sanders is telling you, free health care for everybody, $15 minimum wage, 100% employment via the federal government. It's insane.
And free education.
Yeah, free education. And how long do you think you're going to be able to keep your guns under that regime?
Not long.
This is something that you've got otherwise smart people, mostly young, mostly college educated, that are out there. In the Pittsburgh area, Summer Lee and Sarah Innamorato, Democrats, who are both members of the Democrat Socialist of America, won primaries for state house districts 34 and 21. Lee and Innamorato defeated state representatives Paul Costa and Dom Costa, both Democrats. And they have been in Pittsburgh politics for a long time. They do not have any Republican opponents in the general election. So guess what? Pennsylvania gets 2 socialists in their state house. Costa congratulated Lee on her victory, telling the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that her campaign had done a better job getting people out to vote, probably paid them. They energized a lot of people, and they showed up at the polls, he told the outlet. In Philadelphia, Democrats Elizabeth Fielder and Kristen Seal won legislative primaries for House districts 184 and 168. Fielder does not have a GOP opponent in the general election, while Seal will take on Representative Christopher Quinn. I'll tell you, Jack, this is chilling that our people are so damn stupid.
What's funny is the Democrats are allowing the socialists, that's the extreme far left, to take over their party. You know, like you said, the Democrat Party of our youth is almost non-existent.
That's right.
Today. They used to be the ones that supported the working man, the blue-collar guys. Besides the teachers union and then the service workers union, you hardly see them manning up for auto workers and coal miners and the like, which was their base at one point.
But it was always all a lie, because they supported the workers, but they did not support the industries. So the industries died because of the Democrats. And now, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, now they're focusing on the fringe. But my biggest problem is with the young. And to me, there's only one reason for that, and that is phony, false education. And I'm not for a big Department of Education by any means, but this has to stop. And while the Republicans are in power, they have to enact some legislation that there is some mandatory education that goes on, specific education that goes on in our schools. I mean, these kids don't know what a socialist is. They can't.
You see more pictures of Che Guevara in the textbooks than you do the founding fathers these days. I did a search,
an image search of Democrat Socialists of America in Pittsburgh, and it was jam-packed full of, I'd never had a clue. I didn't know there was that many of them. I mean, they're organized. I mean, they are so subversive and organized and infiltrating everything. They make it look like we are trying to enslave people. And they believe it. These people actually believe it.
But it's the exact opposite.
Terrifying.
It's the exact opposite.
Exactly.
You give the socialist control, and you just take a look at Venezuela and see how those people are doing under socialist government. The leaders, the people in charge, are eating well, aren't they?
Look in Europe. They're opening their borders to savages. But the leaders are fine.
Yes, they are.
It was a great night for female candidates in the Keystone State in general, as all 4 women unseated male state representatives. Pennsylvania has an all-male delegation to the U.S. Congress, but several women won primaries for the House on Tuesday night and will be favorites in November. So they don't care. They got women, but they're socialist women. The DSA hailed the legislative victories as a huge moment for the socialist movement. Ariel Cohen, co-chair of the Pittsburgh DSA chapter, told the Huffington Post that she feels a monumental shift after the victories, noting DSA's growing membership since President Trump's election. We won on popular demands that were deemed impossible. We won on health care for all. We won on free education. We're turning the state the right shade of red tonight. What a bunch of idiots.
There they go, promising free stuff again.
Oh, it's scary. It really is. We got to do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, that's very frustrating for Pennsylvania, but that's happening in
New York.
lot of states. I mean, my state has the same issues going on. We used to be pretty much, one way or the other, but we're slowly turning deep blue.
For every story that gets on the show, there's 5 or 6 that don't. And one of them was your state is in the top 5 of Islamic infiltration. That kind of shocked me. But,
wait a minute, let me get my shotgun.
All right, we got to move along here.
Hey, but one good thing happened in Pennsylvania yesterday. Lou Barletta, right, won his primary for the Senate.
He did.
That's good news.
That's very good news. And he's a charismatic guy, and I think he has a shot.
Yes.
I hope he does. Along kind of the same vein as the previous story, from the Daily Caller, liberal writers say Democrats should give up on white Republicans. Democrats should stop trying to win over white Republican voters, according to several prominent liberal writers. That was the point of a column Washington Post writer Paul Waldman wrote on Tuesday, which liberal journalists approvingly circulated on social media, adding their agreement. Waldman, who previously worked for left-wing group Media Matters, blamed Fox News and conservative media for the fact blue-collar Trump voters don't vote Democrat. How about that? And a related story, Democrat Donor Network wants reparations on agenda by 2022. In the endless search for the magic key that Democrats can use to unlock the hearts of white people who vote Republican, the hot new candidate is Respect, Waldman snarked. If only they cast off their snooty liberal elitism and show respect to people who voted for President Donald Trump, Democrats can win them over and take back Congress and the White House. The problem isn't Democrats, according to Waldman. It's that Trump voters are too uninformed to vote for Democrats. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this, they believe this.
That to me, that's a true liberal elite talking down against the Trump voters. We're too ignorant? No.
Listen to the rest of this.
Uninformed?
Yeah, listen to the rest of this. Thinking of the media as I'm saying this. The right has a gigantic media apparatus that is devoted to convincing people that liberals disrespect them, plus a political party whose leaders all understand that the idea is key to their political project and so join in the chorus at every opportunity. Now, what, does the video camera lie?
The right has a gigantic media. They've been shutting down the right extensively by any means necessary, you know?
And I mean, have you heard Jimmy Kimmel? Have you heard Stephen Colbert? Have you heard Bill Maher?
There's all of them.
You know, talk about a giant media operation that whose leaders all understand the idea to keep their political project and join in the chorus at every opportunity. Waldman advised Democrats to keep in mind that white Republicans are not going to vote for you anyway, and their votes are no more valuable or virtuous than the votes of any other American. A key component of Waldman's column was Democrats are already sufficiently respectful of white working-class Republicans. Just last month, he dismissed Trump voters as dumb. It's so funny because there's a tweet in here that has a picture of like the raving Trump supporters in this article about white people, and there's a black Trump supporter right in the picture. The Republican base seems too dumb to realize that even with Donald Trump rampaging through the White House, the establishment is doing just fine if you define it as the economic elite that so skillfully works the system in Washington no matter how dysfunctional things get. He argued in an April 18th column, in fact, the establishment has never had it better. Waldman's latest column dismissing Trump voters was a hit among liberal leaders and pundits on social media. His colleague on the Post opinion side, Greg Sargent, described Waldman's column as a takedown of the idea that Democrats don't do enough to win the respect of Trump voters. Others offered similarly enthusiastic praise for Waldman's column. Tom Hartman tweets, "This is brilliant and true. Why Democrats can't win the Republican Trump voters and shouldn't bother." And that's where the picture is.
as if they've been trying at all. We're the deplorables, right?
Yeah. David Atkins tweets, "This is a tremendous piece, one of the best of the year." It's unbelievable.
That's their own, what do you call it? That's when you get into a room full of one-sided
echo chamber
thinkers, echo chambers, and they're patting each other on the back, cheering. I don't know what the point of that is. The article, I don't know what the point is because, you know, everything, pretty much everything he wrote in there is either false or wishful thinking.
But they don't think it's false. They really don't. I mean, some of them have to.
It's a vast right-wing conspiracy.
With their
entire
huge
media
huge media machine. Democrats have virtually no control whatsoever over what rural and suburban whites hear. None, Roberts claimed. It doesn't matter what they say, what attitude they take. Listen to the tyrannical sound of this. What attitude they take, the tone they use, the message they craft, they have no way of reaching those RNSW directly. Instead, Roberts said, Democrats should focus on power and policy. That's all that matters, he concluded. Power and policy. That's some Gestapo-sounding stuff right there.
Yeah, the truth leaks out at the end, right?
Yeah, sure. Now, there was a group of Republicans last week that I reported that were trying to use a discharge petition for an amnesty push, and it would have ended if it happened with terrible results. All the Democrats would have piled on, and we would have had amnesty. So there's a story here. There's a couple of them, but the one I selected, Kevin McCarthy slams discharge petition amnesty push, number one way to depress intensity in midterms. Now, he doesn't slam it because Americans don't want amnesty. He slams it because it might upset the politics. This is the kind of stuff that you got to watch with these people.
Yeah, and this guy is the one is being groomed or tapped to replace the vacating Speaker of the House, Ryan.
He's number 2 in charge, yeah. I don't think he's going to get it. I think Scalise will, but Scalise has the same article. You know, listen, in a House GOP conference meeting on Tuesday, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy lit into an effort by some in the party, a lot of them that are retiring, Charlie Dent is one of them, lead a discharge petition to force an amnesty bill to the floor of the House. Our numbers are better, McCarthy told House GOP. This is why he wants to stop it. Our numbers are better, McCarthy told House GOP members, per a source in the room. If the election is today, we win. Will we continue to grow? But few things can disrupt us. We cannot disrupt ourselves. Intensity levels are still not there, and discharge petitions release the power of the floor that the American people gave us the responsibility to hold. When you release that power, the majority goes to Nancy. If you want to depress intensity, this is the number one way to do it. We can debate internally, but don't let someone else like Nancy decide our future. These people are frauds.
Yeah, it's all political theater. We knew, President Trump had on the table, a DACA deal and whatever with his demands for the border wall and all that stuff. Trump bent over backwards, to give this Congress what they wanted. And even when he gave them what they wanted, they didn't vote for it.
No. And the American people didn't want it either.
Of course.
And still don't. And that's the part that really bothers me, that they would continue to follow without ever thinking what the people
you're exactly
want.
Right. This is a pure politics, because he's not saying that there's never going to be an amnesty. He's saying what they're doing right now during this midterms is not the right time.
Exactly.
That's all he's saying.
That's exactly right, and that was the reason I brought this out there, was because McCarthy's waving his hands around, and the media's making it look like he's trying to stop this, and he may be, but there's only one reason he's trying to stop it, so they can have enough people to do it next term. It's sickening. It is. The whole idea that American adults would even come anywhere near this issue the way they have, there's something going on. I mean, again, and I say this every other show, I would love to see a financial investigator investigate these people's money flow. I really would.
You've got that, and then you also have the GOP, small letter E, trying to fight for the voting bloc, which is the number one thing. The Democrats are saying, all right, if we get this amnesty, bam, we've got Democrats for the next 50 years or so. So to me, any side on the GOP, the establishment GOP, talking about amnesty is trying to cut into that voting block.
Oh yeah, and you talk about young dumb white voters voting socialist. The Latin American voters will happily vote socialist. Anything they can do to get freaking gringos money. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's sad. All over the world.
So that's kids from Latin American countries, that the youth combined with the youth of America, because older generations of Latin Americans are more conservative.
To an extent.
To
an extent. The problem with the whole situation, and General Kelly laid it out and got lambasted for it, is that they're not educated. They're peasants. I've been saying that for years. These are not rocket scientists that are coming over here. The president said it too when he first announced. And this is just a fact. There's people that come over to this country that are not fluent in their own language, much less English.
Right.
And we're to the point now, and you've seen it in the military, and I have too. We're to the point now that there is not even enough respect for the American people to speak English, even if you know how. And that ticks me off more than most things, that somebody would do that. Not that they're not free to do it, but don't you have any inner morality to speak the language of the country you're in if you're capable? That makes me mad. I mean, call me what you want.
That used to be the number one desire for immigrants,
right?
To learn English. I mean, sure, in their communities and stuff, they still, and that goes to all the immigrants from the past there. But it was like a badge of honor to learn English, to get your American citizenship, raise your right hand, and become part of this country.
I knew Italian families that they only spoke Italian inside. They weren't allowed to speak it outside, except for maybe grandfather and grandmother. They were like exempt. But anyway, finally, ladies and gentlemen, Money Talks ratings crisis. CNN suffers viewership collapse of nearly 30%. The last time I reported that, it was 20%. So the free market works, and we're out of time. Jack, how can people get in touch with you? Any final comments?
I'd just like to say that congratulations on you and your son having a great time out there on the Allegheny yesterday. Thank you to all the people that tuned in tonight on a special night. We'll be back next Tuesday. It'll be my last episode for 2 weeks because I'll be leaving for Memorial Day weekend down with the family. But thanks, Hutch.
All right, Jack, thank you. My name is Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter. I want to thank everybody for listening live, and to those of you that listen on all the other venues as well. Heading over to the Wayne Dupree show right now. Bill Whittle is our special guest. You won't want to miss that. Thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour, ladies and gentlemen. God bless Rocky. Let's go.
Cold War Radio Eagle 1 cleared for takeoff.
Cold War Radio Eagle 1, Baltimore bound command. Destination We Are America Radio Studio, Rocky out. This is Godzilla, coming around you to light the bad guys up with a Maverick.
Roger over.